Now, if you saw our first impressions video featuring Nike's new ZoomX Zegama trail shoe, you'll know that I actually really enjoyed that first outing. It was just a nice steady run across the Towans here in Hayle. It was pretty flat and very dry. Now, with that new shoe being named after the iconic gnarly trail race that's run on a very wet, very muddy and super technical route, I wanted to test the shoe out in some more challenging conditions. Now, it just so happens that we were just about to head out to Chamonix for TDS at UTMB, so I packed the Zegamas in my bag and we headed off to France to give them a thorough testing. Welcome back, folks. I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure. Thanks for joining us for another review video. A bit of stunning footage there from our epic mountain trip. We had such a great time. I think myself and Liga have just about got over our holiday blues, but such a successful trip as well. And we got to film lots of content while we were out there, from training day videos to kit reviews to our Chamonix UTMB guide and obviously our race day videos. So if you haven't checked any of them videos out yet, what I'll do is I'll link them all in the description below so you can check them out. Right, okay, on with the review. And like I was saying earlier, there were some real positives when it comes to Nike's latest trail offering, but I knew the real test would come when we got out in those challenging mountainous conditions. So what we're going to do, give you a few facts and figures, we're going to break down the construction in a bit more detail, and then we're going to dive into how it performed. So it retails in the UK for £145. Weight wise, it comes in at 316 grams in a UK 9.5. When it comes to that heel drop, we've got a 4mm offset, so you get 37mm under your heel and 33mm under your forefoot. We've got a pretty decent 4mm lug on the outsole, and when it comes to fit and width, I would say it's true to size with average width in the toe box. Onto the construction, and you get this twin layered engineered mesh upper. We've got lots of little perforations worked in around the midfoot and across the toe box to make it nice and lightweight but highly breathable. The tongue design is quite thin, but it's also gusseted within the shoe, and Nike have worked in these little zones of padding on the tongue that actually work really well. They allow you to get a brilliant lockdown while remaining very comfortable over the top of your foot. The back end of that upper has quite a lot going on. So firstly, we've got quite a nice bit of substance there from a substantial heel cup. Nike have also worked in their ankle gaiter system that's supposed to help keep debris out of the upper. We've got this internal sort of band or zone of padding worked into that ankle collar for a bit of added comfort. And then finishing off that heel, we've got a handy pull tab to make it a bit easier to get in and out of the shoe. Nike have worked in some structural overlays around the midfoot, around those laces and around the toe box, just for a bit of added durability. Don't be fooled by this rubber overlay on the toe. It's not any added protection from a toe bumper. It's still very, very soft. Unfortunately, I did find that out as I was hurtling down a descent in Chamonix. It was a rocky section. I managed to stub my right big toe. Boy, was it painful. Let's just put it this way, there was a few expletives flying around and I was hopping on one leg for a while. Moving down to that ZoomX compound midsole, and this is the first time that their performance-based compound has been used in one of their trail shoes. Obviously, it's been used a lot of times in their road running lineup, including the record-breaking Alpha Fly and Vaporfly. Now, I've got a question. If there's any sort of Nike employees watching, there probably isn't, but if there is this a full ZoomX midsole, or has it just got a quart of ZoomX that's cradled in a different compound? After our first impressions review, I got quite a lot of comments from viewers saying that it's just got a quart of ZoomX. So if you know the answer to that, get in the comments and let us know. And last but definitely not least, especially when it comes to a Nike trail running shoe, it is the infamous outsole. Now, it's been well documented on the channel. All the Nike trail shoes that I've reviewed and tested in the past have always struggled when it comes to wet, British, muddy conditions. Now, with Nike making the bold move of naming it after that tough, challenging race, you'd like to think that they've put a top performing outsole on the shoe, wouldn't you? I know I really would. Or is it just the brand piggybacking off that iconic race to try and sell more shoes? You get a pretty aggressive 4mm multi-directional lug pattern, and that outsole is actually split into 3 sections. So you've got the area under the forefoot, and then you've got the 2 heel sections. I've got to be honest, I'm never a massive fan of having an exposed midfoot on a trail running shoe. It tends to set alarm bells off for me when it comes to grip and traction. You could be running in a super technical area where you have to move your feet quickly, and you just have to land and strike on a midfoot, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I think a full-blown rubber outsole is a much better option to give you that level of grip and traction across the midfoot, especially when the shoe is supposedly designed to handle challenging underfoot conditions. So there you have it, guys, Nike's new trail running shoe, the ZoomX Zegama. Now, this was pretty hyped on release because of the ZoomX midsole, and Nike did make some pretty bold claims about the performance. So let's jump into the bit that you've all been waiting for and find out if it lives up to those claims. We'll start with all the positive stuff first, of which there is quite a lot actually, but we'll also highlight a few issues we had along the way, and maybe highlight a few things we feel could be improved when it comes to the ZoomX Zegama 2. I think the biggest standout for me was the fit and lockdown on my foot shape. You know, the Zegama upper really does fit like a glove, and you know, that's a really weird saying, isn't it? Especially when you're talking about a running shoe that goes on your foot and a glove goes on your hand. But anyway, a very precise fitting upper on my foot shape. The gusseted tongue works really well. I love that zonal padding Nike have put across it. It allows you to pull those laces down nice and tight, get a great lockdown and hold around your midfoot while remaining really comfortable, and great hold in the heel as well. So no slippage, no lateral or medial movement within that upper. And you know, that's really important to me, and that's something I always look for in my trail running shoes. The only thing I would say is maybe a little bit more depth in the toe box, because the shoe is very shallow in the toe. I don't know whether that shows on camera. Not that it caused me any problems or any issues or anything like that, but I just think a little bit more depth to the shoe would give it a little bit more volume, which can only help, especially when you're sort of running long distance, because you know, over time your feet really can expand. The midsole performed really well on most terrains that I ran it on, and I say most because there was one issue, but we'll get onto that a little bit later. But yeah, really good performance on sort of flat, harder, sort of compacted trails, and on all the sections of tarmac that I ran the shoe on, to the point where I'd happily pop this on for a road marathon and probably really enjoy the experience. To be fair, like all Nike trail shoes, it performed really well in that road environment. Felt like it was giving lots of bounce back and energy return, but it also feels like a midsole that will soak up those long distances with ease. And the biggest surprise of all has to come from the outsole. You know, after disappointment after disappointment after disappointment when it comes to Nike rubber outsoles, this one actually performed pretty good. So that quite aggressive 4mm lug pan seemed to really sort of dig in and bite into loose trails, offering really good levels of traction, and the rubber definitely felt stickier than previous rubbers that I've tried on Nike trail shoes. There was one point out in Chamonix, I was out on a training run trying to get lots of elevation in, ran around the corner, it was a dead end on the trail, looked to the left of me and there was this sort of steepish bank leading up to a chairlift station at the top, and I thought, perfect, that's about 200 meters up, I can scramble up there. Thought it was a great idea at the time. I got about halfway up and then maybe changed my views a little bit because it was getting steeper and steeper and steeper, to the point where I was grabbing hold of tufts of grass to make sure I didn't fall backwards. This outsole performed brilliant. Them lugs really dug in and they gave me a lot of confidence on the loose bank at a time when I really needed that confidence. I managed to get a little bit closer to the top, and then there was a fixed rope, so I give it a tug to check it was safe. It was. I grabbed hold of it and pulled my way up to the top, climbed over the barrier and let out a big sigh of relief. However, I'm still not a massive fan of an exposed midfoot area on a trail running shoe, and I don't really understand why brands would make trail running shoes with this. There was a couple of times out there where I was running in a rocky area. It was early in the morning, so it was quite dewy, quite damp, and you know, this just didn't feel safe. I didn't feel secure, and I had to stop, walk just to get through those areas safely. So next time round, I'd definitely like to see a full-blown rubber outsole on this shoe. I know it'll add a bit of weight, but I think it'll be worth it, and you can always counterbalance that weight by losing a bit of bulk from the upper. You can see lots of positives when it comes to the Nike trail shoe, but I did have a few issues along the way as well, and I would say the biggest one was midsole stability, or should I say instability. On the flat, compacted trails, that ZoomX compound performed really well, but there was a few times on the more technical stuff in the mountains where it really struggled, and I just felt like I was really disconnected to the trails underfoot. And the stability actually seemed to get worse as I put more miles into that midsole, and it started to sort of bed in and break down. On my second sort of long run in the shoe in the mountains, I was running up to the refuge, I went out the back, and I ended up sort of off-piste in this sort of boulder field. Lots of big, sharp, gnarly boulders, and boy did this shoe struggle in that environment, and I almost sort of went over on my ankle several times. It really didn't like it, and I just didn't feel safe, so had to tread very carefully to get out of there safely, and that's really not what you want when you're sort of a week out from your biggest race of the year. I know I keep bringing up the name of the shoe, Zegama, but with the level of instability I had from that midsole on those more technical trails, there is no way I would use this shoe on a race like that. I just didn't have enough underfoot connection, and I wouldn't feel safe moving at speed in areas like that. So maybe it is just Nike jumping on the Zegama bandwagon, trying to sell more shoes, which is a real shame. Another big no-no for me is the lack of protection on the toe of the upper. Now Nike have sort of wrapped the outsole up around the toe to offer a bit of protection. That does kind of work, but the toe is still way too soft, and like I mentioned before, I was coming off of that long descent and I managed to kick a rock pretty hard, and I know it was my mistake, it was a stupid mistake, and I should have been more focused, but I really would like to see a more substantial toe bumper on the shoe next time round. And lastly, something that Nike shoes normally excel at, and that is durability. So I've run just under 50 miles so far in the shoe, and that ZoomX midsole is already starting to show signs of wear. So I've got a few chunks taken out of the compound. The heel section of the midsole is starting to look pretty stressed out, and that rubber outsole that wraps up around the toe on one shoe has started to work loose. So maybe that ZoomX compound isn't the most durable in a trail running environment. So there's a few things we feel that could be improved when it comes to running the shoe on technical trails like you'd find in the Zegama race. But we've reached that point of the review where we need to get some scores on the board. So let's start scoring the ZoomX Zegama from Nike, and let's start with the price first. Retailing at £145 here in the UK, it's obviously not the most affordable trail running shoe in the world. But when you think we've just done our first impressions on a shoe that's almost double the price, the Satisfy Norda 001, retailing at £280, £145 isn't that bad. So we're going to give it a 7 out of 10 when it comes to price. Up next is comfort and performance, and I've enjoyed my time in the ZoomX Zegama. I think that upper is nice and comfortable and very breathable. The fit on my foot shape is brilliant. I literally pull the shoe on, pull those laces down tight, and then out on the run, I don't give the upper a second thought. That ZoomX midsole has performed well on sort of 90% of the trails I've run it on, and I'm really surprised at the level of grip and traction I got from that outsole, and surprised in a positive way, not the normal sort of Nike disappointed negative way. I think with an added toe bumper, maybe a little bit of a shallower stack height on that midsole so you feel, you know, a bit more connected and a bit more stable when you're running on uneven ground, the shoe would score even higher, but I think it still deserves a pretty good 7 out of 10 for comfort and performance. And last up is the all-important durability, and this is an area where most of the Nike shoes on the channel have actually scored really high, but unfortunately not this time round. That midsole is looking pretty beaten up already, and like I said, we had a bit of peel on the outsole around the toe as well. So it's not terrible. I'm sure we'll still get plenty of miles out of the shoe, but it is going to get marked down a little bit. So we're going to give it a 6 out of 10 for durability. So tallying up all those scores at Run4Adventure for Nike's new ZoomX Zegama, it's going to come in with a room for improvement 20 out of 30. Looks wise, I think it looks okay, and when I bought the shoe, I had the choice between the blue, green and yellow colorway or just a pretty dull, boring black and white option. So I went for the blue ones. since then, Nike have actually launched another colorway which looks really cool. I wish they'd had it when I bought mine. So we're going to give it a thumbs up for looks. As far as comparisons go, so other trail shoes that are going to offer you that sort of deep midsole cushioned trail experience. Obviously we got Hoka's Speedgoat 5, again another deeply cushioned trail running shoe. Super popular, especially if you're running long distances. But the Speedgoat does have a full blown rubber Vibram Mega Grip outsole, so no exposed areas across the midfoot, and it has a slightly deeper 5mm lug. So that shoe might offer you a bit more grip and traction, especially as we head into the wetter months. You've also got Saucony's Endorphin Trail, so not the Endorphin Edge that we reviewed a few weeks ago, the Endorphin Trail, again another deeply cushioned trail shoe that can handle a big mix of terrains and is very comfortable over long distances. So time to wrap up with a quick conclusion, and I think Nike are starting to make improvements when it comes to their trail running shoes. It might be very slowly, but they're definitely heading in the right direction. I think the outsole on the ZoomX Zegama is one of their better efforts for when it comes to grip and traction. You know, is it up there with a Vibram Mega Grip or a Power Track from Saucony outsole? Well, no, but it's definitely an improvement when it comes to the previous Nike trail shoes that I've run in. So if you're on the market for a trail shoe with a nice, comfortable, breathable, great fitting upper, you like a deep level of cushioning in the midsole of your trail shoes, and you tend not to run on sort of technical mountainous trails, but you spend most of your miles on towpaths or just, you know, sort of fire gravel roads, then I'd definitely recommend checking out the ZoomX Zegama in a bit more detail. So what I've done is I've left a link in the description so you can do exactly that. It's always great to get your feedback, guys. So if you've been rocking a pair of these, let us know how the shoe has performed for you in the comments below. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed the video and you found it helpful, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Super simple to do, just by clicking on that red subscribe box down there in the corner. Only takes a second and it is completely free, but it really does help the channel out. But don't forget to hit that bell icon as well, so you'll be notified when we upload any new exciting running content. You can also follow us on our other social media platforms so you can keep up with what we're doing there, whether it be Instagram, Facebook or Strava. But for now, guys, thanks for watching and supporting the channel. It's always appreciated. We'll be back here very soon, and as always, stay safe and keep on running. Very technical route. I obviously wanted to chat. So there you have it, guys. Nike's new trail running shoe, the ZoomX Zegama. Now, I can't remember what I was going to say. And the stability of the midsole seemed to get worse as I sort of put more miles into it and it broke down. And obviously our race day video. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description.